Hello, this is Brian Hegney, instructor of game design at High Point University. Let's go ahead and start drawing and editing our first shape for this cool zombie character. Alright, I've got my zombie head layer enabled. We'll create it and enabled and unlocked and visible. And base is locked and visible, and so anything I draw is going to go into that zombie head layer. Now, I'm not going to draw a box, and I'm not even going to draw a circle or ellipse. I could start with that, but I'm going to do something a little bit more complicated, but it'll be more helpful for us. So let's go ahead and do that. We are going to use this Draw Bezier Curves tool. Right down here, it looks like a pen, so I may accidentally call it a pen tool. In every other software, it's called a pen tool. And what I'm going to do is trace this head. Now, what we're attempting to do is create a base series of images so that, let's go into here, so that we can ultimately create a sprite sheet of different parts of a run cycle, a walk cycle, things like that. And so what we can, when you're starting with just a drawing of a person, right? When the person moves their arms in one way, let's take a look at this guy, right? Well, like this guy, if we started with this base image here on the left, well, when his right arm moves and he's running forward, his arm is forward, it's going to reveal a part of his body that is not in this image. And so it's not just, we're not just going to take this one concept art piece and like push the animate button. If we want to break it down into a usable piece of art for a sprite sheet for a game, we're going to have to recreate some of it, right? So that's one of the things we'll be doing here. And this will work for you if you do your own, concept art for a character. And then you get to the point where you're going to use it in a game and you're going to have to break it down into its pieces to create a sprite sheet. This is one of the things you're going to have to do. And so let's go ahead and take a look at this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here so you can see this. I am going to start with my Bezier tool, and I'm going to show you my technique. You may have a different technique because, yeah, so I'm just going to start here. And what you'll notice is I always go in a counterclockwise fashion. Now, in the olden days, I'll give you a little bit of history. In the olden days, when you drew a shape counterclockwise, that was drawing the shape properly. It actually showed you the surface of your object pointing towards you. If you drew that shape in a clockwise fashion, it's actually pointing away from you. Now, in games, there's something called a sprite, and sprites are 2D surfaces that point in one direction. You can only see a 2D surface in one direction. And so in my whole professional life, when I was drawing 2D things to be brought into a game engine, I'm always drawing in a counterclockwise fashion. Why don't you get used to that as well? So I'm gonna draw the shape of this guy's head with left click and releases. So I'm gonna left click and release on that point, and I'm gonna left click and release going around his head. Now here's something else to consider. I'm actually gonna hit escape because I want to escape out of this. Okay, here's my question to you. How many points, let's say I was drawing this eyeball. How many points would you need to create this circle? Right? And the answer to that, there is an answer, it's 4. I want you to, oh, this circle isn't going to work. I think this is just 1 point. It kind of has, yeah, this shape has really one, this is mathematically derived, so their circles aren't really going to help me explain this. But the drawing of vector art, there's a rule of thumb that says for every 90 degrees, you should have one more node. Okay, so you'd start here, you'd go here, you'd go here, you'd go here, and you'd go there. Now, of course, that's a square, but what we would have done is, let me delete that. I'm going to left click and drag. Left click and drag. Oh, darn it. Left click and drag. Left click and drag. Left click and drag. And the idea is I can actually pretty this up to become a circle. Can I actually select these and do auto? And this more or less is not a perfect circle. I would have to play with it a little bit more. If I wanted a perfect circle, I would have used the circle tool, but I wanted to show you that you can create this nice shape. There we go. I just have to drag these out a little bit more. A circular shape with 4 points. So one of the mistakes that people make along the way is they think, okay, I'm gonna go like that. Like you make a lot of points, and the more nodes you draw, the more you're likely to introduce some error. Okay, so that's a long intro to how we're going to start drawing this head. I just don't want you to create more nodes than you need, because it's going to be more annoying for you to fix later on, and it's just going to take longer. The other thing I'm looking at here is I'm looking at where there are points. So I'm just noticing this. Like this is a corner, a hard corner, there's a hard corner there, hard corner there. There's likely a hard corner right here if I moved this guy's arm and shoulder, so I'm going to keep that in mind. So with all of that information at the tips of my fingerprints at the tips of my fingers now, I'm going to start drawing. And I'm not going to draw with curves just yet. So what I'm going to do, like the way I showed you I drew that square eye, that's how I like to start. Again, you can do whatever you feel comfortable after you've done this a long time. I'm going to left click and release. I'm going to consider like where the 90 degrees is. Probably here. Left click and release. 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 Probably one right here. Left click and release. And I'm going to end. And you might say to yourself, Hegney, that looks nothing like what it should look like. And this is where the fun part comes in. I'm going to now switch to this tool, which is Edit Paths by Nodes. And now I'm going to left click and push these lines here. And that's actually going to automatically change the corner type of these nodes. We'll look at that in a little bit. I'm just going to say, you know what? I know to push this here. And I start pushing from the middle of these two nodes. Left click and push. And you can notice the hand or the icon kind of changes when your little arrow goes to the line. That's when you can start left clicking and pulling or pushing. There we go. And of course, this one is likely going to be like this. Okay. And that's a decent start, I think. One thing you'll notice now as I left click on each of these nodes, you can see that we have these little handles. And now I can left click and drag them individually. And I don't even have to have the node selected. Notice if I click this node, it selects all of the nodes and handles. We're going to call this a node, which is the thing you'll see here. And those little circles that appear are going to be called handles. Okay, so if I select a node, you will see the handles of the nodes to the left and right of it. And that's just, I guess, helpful. Yeah, why is it helpful, Hegney? Just because. All right, so this is fun. And you can see you can get really into that. Now, what else am I going to do here? Well, I want to see... I'm going to left click and drag from the rulers when I want to align certain things to each other. So I want to align this cheek thing here, and I also want to drag another one down to the very bottom of this jaw, just so that I know that I get this node of the other side of the jaw exactly proper. I actually want this node to snap to this guide there, for the reason that I want the transition between this line, this straight line, and this to be smooth. And so I'm going to zoom in and show you that really closely. Whoops, I'm zoomed in so far I cannot see the node, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. There we go. Let's see, I'm going to select that thing. Okay, there we go. Select that. If this is up too far, like that, this handle, well, the more it's up, the more it introduces a weird corner right here. So personally, I want that to be smooth. And now the transition from a straight line to a curve is just much smoother. Now, of course, this is pointed because that is a point in the drawing. Now here's where, now I'm holding my space bar and moving my mouse, and that's going to move, it's going to pan around the scene. The thing that I'm not sure about here is whether or not this jawline really should be aligned. I'm not sure it is in the drawing, and that's bothering me. Okay, I'm just gonna keep it here just in case. And again, I'm drawing this. I make sure I'm aligning these nodes to the same line so that this is straight, because I think it is straight. And aligning this node to the guide. This is not as important. I'd like to follow my drawing as closely as possible. And yeah. Let's see. And do I think this goes out? I think that does go out. And so I'm going to drag another guide here just so that I can align that to the edge and align this to the edge as well. So why am I spending so much time on perfection when it's just a drawing and it doesn't have to be perfect? Well, just 'cause. Okay, so there's the first one, and now here's the thing. I'm gonna zoom out. That's how much trouble I put into this, and you should too. This shape is gonna be really important. The best we get it, or if we can get it as good as possible, it's just gonna make our life easier as life goes on. So here's what we can do. Now this is just an outline. If I turn off visibility for my base, this isn't any fun. This isn't good. So what you want to do, or what we can do, is use a new window. But you know what? Let's call it quits. There's our drawing. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a hand for completing such difficult drawing, and be proud of ourselves. I'll see you in the next video when we start to add color and more objects. Okay, bye.